When Mark received a $500 fine from his HOA for fishing in the community lake, he decided to turn the tables in a way no one saw coming. He bought the lake, banned the entire neighborhood, and rewrote the rules of revenge. Mark had always been a man who valued simplicity. A software engineer in his late 30s, he lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Central Florida, where neatly trimmed lawns and cookie-cutter houses lined the streets. The community, known as Sunny Acres, was governed by a homeowners association, HOA, that prided itself on maintaining order and uniformity. For years, Mark had kept his head down, paid his dues, and followed the rules. But everything changed the day he decided to cast a fishing line into the small, man-made lake at the edge of the neighborhood. The lake was the pride of Sunny Acres, a shimmering body of water surrounded by a walking path, benches, and a few willow trees. Residents often strolled around it, and kids sometimes fed the ducks. Mark, an avid fisherman since childhood, saw the lake as more than just a scenic backdrop. He knew it was stocked with bass and bluegill, and one Saturday morning he grabbed his fishing rod, a tackle box, and a folding chair, heading down to the water's edge. He wasn't looking to cause trouble, just to spend a quiet morning reeling in a few fish. He'd been there for about an hour, enjoying the peace and the occasional tug on his line, when a woman in a golf cart pulled up. She was Karen, the HOA president, a woman in her 50s with a clipboard always in hand and a knack for spotting rule violations. Karen stepped out, her lips pursed, and informed Mark that fishing in the lake was strictly prohibited under HOA regulations. Mark was taken aback. He'd lived in Sunny Acres for 3 years and had never seen a no fishing sign or heard of such a rule. He apologized, packed up his gear, and went home, assuming it was a misunderstanding. 2 days later, a letter arrived from the HOA. It was a formal notice of a violation, complete with a $500 fine for unauthorized recreational activity in the lake. Mark was stunned. $500 for fishing? He scoured the HOA bylaws, a dense 50-page document, and found a vague clause about preserving the aesthetic integrity of community spaces, but nothing explicitly banned fishing. He called the HOA office to appeal, but Karen was unyielding. "Rules are rules," she said over the phone, her tone dripping with authority. "The lake is for everyone to enjoy, not for you to turn into your personal fishing hole." Mark wasn't one to pick fights, but the fine felt like a slap in the face. He paid it to avoid further hassle, but the incident gnawed at him. He started noticing other petty HOA enforcements. Neighbors fined for leaving trash cans out an hour past pickup time, another cited for planting unapproved flowers in their yard. The more he thought about it, the more he realized the HOA wasn't just about maintaining the neighborhood, it was about control. And Karen, with her clipboard and her golf cart, was the enforcer-in-chief. Over the next few weeks, Mark did some digging. He learned that the lake, while central to the neighborhood's identity, wasn't actually owned by the HOA. It was part of a larger parcel of land managed by a private company, Lakeview Properties, which had developed Sunny Acres decades ago. The HOA had a lease agreement to maintain the lake and its surrounding area, but the actual deed was held by Lakeview. Mark, curious and still stinging from the fine, reached out to the company under the guise of inquiring about local land opportunities. To his surprise, a representative mentioned that Lakeview was looking to offload some of its smaller holdings, including the lake and the surrounding 5 acres. The idea hit Mark like a lightning bolt. What if he bought the lake? It was a wild thought, but he had savings from years of working in tech, and the real estate market in the area wasn't exactly booming. He requested more details. The lake and its surrounding land were listed for $250,000, a steep price, but within reach if he liquidated some investments. Mark spent sleepless nights weighing the decision. It wasn't just about the money, it was about what owning the lake would mean. He could reclaim the space, rewrite the rules, and, most importantly, stick it to the HOA. After consulting with a real estate attorney, Mark made an offer. Lakeview Properties, eager to divest, accepted $225,000 in cash. The deal closed in 6 weeks, and just like that, Mark became the owner of Sunny Acres' prized lake. He didn't tell a soul, not his neighbors, not his co-workers, and certainly not the HOA. He wanted to savor the moment when they found out. Mark's first move was to terminate the HOA's lease agreement. His attorney drafted a letter informing the HOA that, effective immediately, their access to the lake and its surrounding land was revoked. The letter cited the change in ownership and Mark's decision to manage the property privately. He also had a fence installed around the lake's perimeter, complete with private property signs and a locked gate. The signs included a small but deliberate detail: fishing by owner's permission only. When the news broke, the neighborhood erupted. Residents gathered at the next HOA meeting, demanding answers from Karen, who was as blindsided as everyone else. She clutched her clipboard, her face red, as she read Mark's letter aloud. The room buzzed with disbelief. "Who does he think he is?" one neighbor shouted. "This is our lake," another insisted. But legally, it wasn't. Mark had the deed, and the HOA had no recourse. Karen tried to rally the community, suggesting they pool funds to make an offer on the lake. But Mark wasn't selling. He had other plans. He posted a notice on the neighborhood's online forum, announcing that the lake was now his private property and that fishing, walking, or any other activity on the premises required his explicit permission. To drive the point home, he added a line: "Due to recent HOA policies, no residents of Sunny Acres are currently permitted access." The backlash was immediate. Neighbors who had never spoken to Mark suddenly showed up at his doorstep, pleading for access to the lake. Some apologized for the HOA's heavy-handedness, others tried to guilt-trip him, saying the lake was a community treasure. Karen sent him a scathing letter, accusing him of undermining the spirit of Sunny Acres and threatening legal action. Mark's attorney responded with a polite but firm reminder that he was well within his rights as the property owner. Mark didn't stop there. He hired a landscaping company to enhance the lake's surroundings, adding a dock, a small pavilion, and a few picnic tables, for his personal use, of course. He started fishing there regularly, often inviting friends from outside the neighborhood to join him. On weekends, he'd sit on his dock, rod in hand, while neighbors watched enviously from the other side of the fence. Some tried to sneak in, only to be met with motion sensor cameras and a stern warning from Mark's attorney. The HOA's power began to crumble. Without the lake as a centerpiece, Sunny Acres lost some of its appeal. Property values dipped slightly, and Karen's once-iron grip on the neighborhood weakened. Residents started questioning her leadership, especially after it came out that she'd ignored complaints about the fishing rule for years, only enforcing it when she felt like flexing her authority. At the next HOA election, Karen was voted out, replaced by a more moderate president who promised to loosen the rulebook. Mark, meanwhile, found a new sense of freedom. The lake wasn't just a body of water anymore. It was his sanctuary, a place where he could fish, relax, and enjoy the fruits of his bold move. He even started hosting small fishing tournaments for his friends and family, complete with prizes and barbecues. The neighborhood, once united under the HOA's rigid control, was now divided between those who resented Mark and those who secretly admired his audacity. Years later, Mark's story became something of a legend in Sunny Acres. New residents were told about the man who bought the lake to spite the HOA, and the tale was often met with a mix of awe and amusement. Mark never regretted his decision. The $225,000 was a small price to pay for the satisfaction of turning the tables on a system that had tried to control him. And every time he cast his line into the lake, he smiled, knowing he'd not only won the battle but redefined the rules of the game.